Korea is a nation split into two starkly different realities, North Korea and South Korea. Although their prison systems are vastly different, they share one thing in common, the severity of their punishments. In this video, we will explore some of the worst torments prisoners can endure, from inhumane beatings and forced abortions to torture and executions. Are you ready to uncover the reality of Korean inmates? Let's start with North Korea. North Korean prisons don't just hold criminals, they also incarcerate those the regime considers a threat. Attempting to escape the country or even speaking with a foreigner can be enough to get someone thrown in prison, where the nightmare begins. According to a report by Human Rights Watch, detainees in pretrial detention are treated as less than human. Guards mercilessly beat them, electrocute them, and in some cases, rip out their fingernails as a form of torture. The humiliation is constant. Some are forced to eat insects or even human waste to survive, and sexual violence is disturbingly common. The most horrifying part is that prisoners aren't just assaulted, they are also forced to abuse other inmates. One of the most harrowing testimonies comes from Lee Yong-hoo, who attempted to flee North Korea in 2007, but was captured in China and deported back to her country, where she was imprisoned. For 3 months, she was held at the Onsong Detention Center, enduring what she described as hell on earth. "I felt like an animal, less than human," she confessed. For hours, she was forced to sit cross-legged with her hands on her knees, forbidden to move or speak. Any attempt to do so resulted in immediate punishment. Guards would strike her hands until they turned purple. For pregnant women, the fate was even worse. According to her testimony, many were forced to undergo abortions through lethal injections or brutal beatings to the abdomen. Some gave birth inside their cells, only to watch their newborns be killed or flushed down the toilet without the slightest trace of compassion. This becomes even more horrifying when considering that many of these pregnancies were the result of sexual violence committed by prison guards. Another former prisoner, Saerom, also spent time at Onsong in 2007 and vividly recalls how brutal the beatings were. "They hit your thighs with a wooden stick. You walk in, but you crawl out. I couldn't bear to watch others being beaten, but they forced me to. If I turned my head away, they would hit me too and make me watch. It destroys your spirit," she recounted. Most detainees, accused of trying to cross the border or communicating with foreigners, are subjected to these tormenting conditions with the goal of breaking them. However, despite the terror imposed by the regime, some managed to escape. Lee Yong-hoo successfully fled again in 2009 and now lives in Seoul, the capital of South Korea. In South Korea, strict discipline presents a different reality. Unlike North Korea, South Korea is a democracy with laws that protect human rights. However, its prison system is extremely rigid. While the death penalty remains legal for crimes such as murder, terrorism, or drug trafficking. No executions have been carried out since 1997 due to pressure from human rights organizations. Still, more than 60 inmates remain on death row, not knowing if they will ever be executed. Life in South Korean prisons follows a rigid routine. Inmates must wake up early, exercise, work, and study under strict supervision. They have no access to the internet or mobile phones and are only allowed one visit per month and one letter per week. Within each cell, a hierarchy is imposed, either by fellow inmates or by guards. Leaders distribute tasks, assign food portions, and even enforce punishments. Disciplinary actions range from being forced to do push-ups and clean toilets to verbal abuse and physical beatings. Michael Fay, an American who spent 3 months at Incheon Detention Center after being arrested for marijuana possession, described being constantly humiliated by both inmates and guards. He recalled being called monkey and dog. "It wasn't the worst experience, but it wasn't as easy as some people might think," he admitted. Overcrowding is another major issue. With prisons operating at over 150% capacity, many inmates sleep on the floor or share beds. Additionally, access to mental health services, education, and rehabilitation is extremely limited, making life behind bars even more difficult. One of the most notorious cases of abuse in the South Korean prison system is that of Lee Seok, a former lawmaker convicted in 2013 for conspiracy against the state. He reported being subjected to constant beatings, electric shocks, sleep deprivation, and death threats to force a confession. According to his testimony, he was coerced into signing a false statement after weeks of torture. Another controversial issue is the presence of religious groups within the prison system. While some provide spiritual support, others have been accused of manipulating and exploiting vulnerable inmates. The church founded by Sun Myung Moon, for example, has a strong presence in prisons, where it actively recruits inmates and persuades them to follow its doctrine. Which of the two systems do you think is worse? As we've seen, prisons in Korea present vastly different realities. In the North, prisoners endure pure horror, systematic torture, abuse, and dehumanization. In the South, while basic rights are protected, life behind bars remains extremely harsh, with rigid discipline and severe overcrowding. Both systems have their flaws and raise serious questions about justice and punishment. So what do you think? Which is more extreme, the brutality of North Korean prisons or the absolute rigidity of South Korea's penal system? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if this video impacted you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more content like this. See you in the next video.